The week after the cookout passed slowly for Emma. She went to work, came home, cooked dinner, and tried to keep her mind on ordinary things. But Daniel's voice lingered in her thoughts. His words about walls and doors repeated in quiet moments. And she found herself wondering what it would mean if she actually let someone in. Ryan noticed. He didn't press her, but she caught him watching her with that knowing look teenagers sometimes wore when they realized they'd been right. Emma tried to stay neutral, reminding herself she didn't owe anyone more than she could give. Still, at night, she caught herself smiling at nothing. And that frightened her more than it comforted her. One evening, while she was cleaning up dishes, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number lit up the screen. "Hi, Emma. It's Daniel. Just wondering how your week's been." No rush to answer. "Hope you're well." Emma froze. Ryan must have shared her number. She let out a sigh, half annoyed, half touched. She wanted to ignore it to keep her distance. But her fingers hovered over the keyboard, and before she could talk herself out of it, she replied, "Hi, Daniel. Week's been fine. Busy, but fine. Hope you're doing well, too." A minute later, the phone buzzed again. "I am. Thank you. Would you like to join me for a walk this weekend?" Fresh air, nothing fancy. Her heart pounded. A walk. Simple, harmless. Still, it felt enormous. After a long pause, she typed, "Yes, that sounds nice." Saturday afternoon was sunny, with a cool breeze drifting through the trees. Emma met Daniel near the small trail by the lake. She had dressed simply, sneakers and a light jacket. But the way Daniel smiled when he saw her made her feel like she was glowing. They started walking slowly along the path. The air smelled of pine, and the water shimmered under the sunlight. At first, the conversation was like neighbors. Community events, Ryan's endless energy. But soon it shifted. Daniel spoke of his late wife, how he had lost her years ago to illness. He didn't share every detail, but enough for Emma to feel the depth of his grief. Yet there was no bitterness in his voice. Only love that had shaped him into the man he was now. Emma listened, her heart aching, not from pity, but from recognition. She knew loss in her own way there, years of being alone, of hiding behind routines and fears. And when it was her turn, she spoke quietly about her failed marriage, about the long silence that had followed, and about how she had convinced herself she didn't need anyone. Daniel didn't interrupt. He didn't judge. He only listened, and when she finished, he said gently, "You've carried so much on your own. But you don't have to, not forever." The words nearly undid her. She blinked back tears, grateful for the breeze that cooled her flushed cheeks. She wanted to tell him she wasn't ready, that it was too much, too fast. But instead, she whispered, "It's hard to believe in second chances." Daniel slowed his steps, turning to face her. "Maybe, but sometimes second chances are the best ones. They come when we've lived enough to know what really matters." The honesty in his voice left her speechless. For a long moment, they just stood there, the lake stretching out behind them, the world quiet except for the rustle of leaves. Emma felt the weight of choice pressing on her chest that night. Emma sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the lamp's soft glow. Ryan knocked on the door and poked his head in. "So, how was it?" Emma hesitated, then smiled faintly. "It was good. Better than I expected." Ryan stepped inside, his grin widening. "See? I told you. You looked happy when you walked in." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "You shouldn't meddle in my life, you know?" But Ryan only shrugged. "I just want you to be happy, Mom. You've done everything for me. Maybe it's time someone looks out for you, too." Her eyes softened. He wasn't a little boy anymore. He was growing up, seeing the world in ways that sometimes startled her. And he was right. She had lived so long in the shadow of her own fears. Maybe it was time to step out. The following week, Emma found herself waiting for Saturday. When Daniel texted again, suggesting dinner this time, she didn't hesitate. She said yes. The evening was simple, an outdoor cafe. String lights glowing above, the hum of quiet conversation around them. Emma felt nervous at first, but Daniel's calm presence steadied her. They spoke about books, about travel dreams they'd never taken, about silly memories from childhood. And for the first time in years, Emma let herself enjoy being seen. As they walked back to their cars, Daniel paused. Emma, I don't want to rush you. I know you've been through a lot. But I'd like to keep seeing you if that's something you'd want too. Emma looked at him, her heart racing. She thought of all the nights she had spent convincing herself she was fine alone. Of all the times she had chosen silence over risk. And then she thought of Ryan. Fuck the smile on his face when he had said she deserved to be happy. Her voice trembled, but it was steady enough. Yes, I'd like that too. Daniel's smile was quiet, warm, and full of promise. They didn't need grand declarations. The simple truth was enough. Weeks turned into months. Emma and Daniel continued to meet, sometimes for walks, times for dinners, sometimes just to sit on her porch with coffee. Ryan teased her often, but his eyes always shone with pride. Slowly, Emma's walls began to crumble. Not with dramatic gestures, but with small, steady moments of trust. One evening, as autumn leaves painted the streets in red and gold, Emma found herself sitting on the couch again, Ryan beside her, Netflix playing in the background. It struck her how different life felt now. Not perfect, not without challenges, but lighter, warmer, fuller. Ryan nudged her, whispering, "You're smiling again. You know that, right?" Emma turned to him, her throat tightening with emotion. She wrapped her arms around her son, holding him close. "I guess I am," she said softly. For years, she had thought her story was finished, that love and laughter were chapters meant only for the past. But sitting there, with her son at her side and the promise of tomorrow waiting just outside her door, Emma finally understood the truth. It was never too late to begin again, and she was ready. Emma Carter had grown used to silence. Not the heavy, painful silence that comes from arguments or anger, but the kind that lingers in a house after years of routine. Her evenings rarely changed. She finished work at the downtown office, came home, made dinner for herself and her 16-year-old son Ryan, then sat on the couch with the TV glowing in front of her. It was a comfortable life, but deep down, she sometimes wondered if it was enough. On this particular Friday night, Emma wanted to make it feel a little more special. Ryan had just finished his school exams, and she felt proud of him. She ordered pizza, bought popcorn, and suggested they spend the evening watching Netflix together. Ryan agreed without hesitation. He was a teenager, yes, but unlike most kids his age, he still liked spending time with his mom. That alone filled her with gratitude. They picked a movie neither of them had seen before, something light and funny. As the film began, Emma leaned back against the couch cushions, trying to relax. The soft glow of the TV lit up their living room, casting long shadows against the walls. For a while, it felt simple, just mother and son sharing laughter. Passing popcorn back and forth, enjoying the normalcy of a quiet night in. But Emma's mind drifted. While Ryan's eyes stayed glued to the screen, hers wandered to the framed pictures on the shelf. A family photo from years ago, her, Ryan, and her ex-husband, Mark, stood in a wooden frame, gathering dust. She hadn't taken it down, though sometimes she thought she should. The divorce had been hard, and though she and Mark remained civil for Ryan's sake. The truth was, she had been on her own for a long time. Too long. She forced herself back to the present, reaching for more popcorn. Ryan grinned at her when their hands bumped in the bowl. "You're stealing all the good pieces, Mom," he teased. She laughed, a soft, genuine laugh she hadn't felt in a while. Half an hour passed. The movie played on, and Emma found herself studying her son more than the screen. He had grown so fast. Taller than her now, with shoulders broadening and a spark in his eyes that reminded her of his father at that age. But Ryan wasn't like Mark. He was gentler, more thoughtful. Sometimes Emma forgot he wasn't a little boy anymore. He was growing into a young man. They noticed things she didn't realize were visible, just as the characters on the screen burst into laughter. Ryan did something unexpected. He reached for the remote and muted the sound. Emma turned, startled, ready to ask why. That's when she saw the serious expression on his face. "Mom," Ryan said quietly, his voice steady but cautious. "Can I ask you something?" Emma blinked. The sudden shift in mood made her heart race. Of course. What is it? Ryan hesitated, glancing at the floor, then back at her. His eyes were filled with something she couldn't quite place: concern, maybe even sadness. He took a deep breath, then spoke words that made Emma's stomach tighten instantly. Why don't you ever date? Don't you get lonely? The question hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Emma froze, popcorn still in her hand, heart pounding. Of all the things she thought her son might say, that night complaints about school, or questions about money, even a request for a new phone, this wasn't it. He had gone straight for the truth she tried so hard to hide. Emma forced a small laugh, though her voice wavered. What makes you ask that, honey? Ryan didn't back down. His gaze was sharp, sincere, older than his years. Because I see you, Mom. You come home from work, you cook, you clean, you take care of me, and then you just sit here. You're always tired. You never go out. Dad moved on a long time ago. Why can't you? Emma's throat tightened. She wanted to say something, anything, but her words tangled. She had built walls around her heart for years, convincing herself she didn't need anyone. She told herself her son was enough, her job was enough, her life was enough. But now, hearing Ryan put it into words, she realized the walls weren't just protecting her. They were suffocating her, too. She took a shaky breath, setting the popcorn bowl aside. Ryan, it's complicated. Things didn't work out with your dad, and after that, I guess I decided I was fine on my own. Ryan tilted his head, studying her carefully. But are you really fine? You don't laugh like you used to. You don't smile like you used to. Sometimes it feels like you're pretending. Emma's eyes stung, but she blinked back the tears. He wasn't wrong. She hadn't smiled the way she once did in years. She told herself it was because she was busy, because being a single mom left little time for anything else. But Ryan saw through her, and it broke her heart that she hadn't hidden it better. I'm okay, she whispered, though the words felt hollow even as she said them. Ryan leaned forward, his tone firm but gentle. No, Mom, you deserve to be more than just okay. You deserve to be happy. Emma's breath caught in her chest. Her 16-year-old son, the boy she had raised and protected, was now the one protecting her from herself. The role reversal was almost too much to take in. She tried to smile, but her lips trembled. Ryan paused, then added something that left her stunned, frozen in place. What if I told you I already introduced someone to you, and you didn't even realize it? Emma's eyes widened, confusion rushing over her. What are you talking about, Ryan? He only smiled faintly, leaning back on the couch. You'll see. The TV screen glowed in the silence. The movie still paused, but Emma couldn't focus on it anymore. Her heart thudded with questions she didn't dare voice. Who was Ryan talking about? What had he done? And why did it feel like her quiet, predictable life was about to change forever? The rest of the movie played on, but Emma barely heard a word. She sat stiff on the couch, her mind racing. Ryan's question had shaken her, but his last comment kept circling in her head. What did he mean he already introduced someone? She wanted to press him, but Ryan had leaned back into the cushions as if nothing had happened, eyes back on the screen. A half smile tugging at his lips. Emma tried to act normal, but her thoughts wouldn't settle. She glanced at her son, noticing how calm he looked, almost like he knew something she didn't. That alone made her uneasy. Ryan wasn't usually secretive. When he was younger, he used to tell her everything. Even as a teenager, he had stayed close. But now, she felt as if there was a whole world of thought happening behind his quiet smile. When the credits rolled, Ryan stretched and stood. Good movie, he said casually. Emma forced a nod, though she couldn't have repeated the plot if she tried. Yeah, it was good. He picked up the popcorn bowl and walked toward the kitchen. Emma followed, unable to hold back any longer. Ryan, she said softly, what did you mean earlier? About introducing me to someone. Ryan paused at the sink, rinsing the bowl. He didn't answer right away. Finally, he looked over his shoulder. You remember Daniel, right? The guy who helped us fix the fence last month. Emma frowned, trying to recall. Then it came back the afternoon when the storm had knocked down part of their wooden fence. She had been struggling to lift the panels back into place when their neighbor Daniel had walked over. He had strong arms, steady hands, and a warm smile. He had insisted on helping, and within an hour the fence stood straighter than before. He had even stayed for coffee afterward, chatting easily with both Emma and Ryan. "Yes, I remember him," Emma said slowly. "Why?" Ryan dried his hands on a towel, then leaned against the counter. "Because he asked about you. He likes you, Mom, and I might have told him you'd be at the community cookout tomorrow." Emma's eyes widened, her chest tightening. "Ryan, you did what?" He shrugged, unbothered. "You need to give people a chance. He's a good guy. He's kind. He actually listens when you talk. And I saw the way you smiled when he was here. You don't smile like that with anyone else." Emma pressed a hand to her forehead. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her 16-year-old son had taken it upon himself to play matchmaker. "Ryan, you can't just do things like that. It's not that simple." "Why not?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. "What are you so afraid of?" The question caught her off guard. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Afraid that was the truth, wasn't it? Afraid of getting hurt again? Afraid of letting someone into the quiet world she had built for herself and her son? Afraid of failing? Ryan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Mom, I know what you've been through. I know you gave up a lot to raise me. But you don't have to keep punishing yourself. You're allowed to be happy. You're allowed to try again." Emma's eyes stung, her throat tight. She wanted to argue, to remind him that he was just a teenager and couldn't possibly understand. But the truth was, he understood more than she had realized. He had seen her at her weakest. He had seen the nights when she fell asleep at the table after a long day. The mornings when she stared at the calendar as though time itself weighed her down. He had noticed everything she thought she had hidden. She turned away, gripping the edge of the counter. "It's not that easy," she whispered. Ryan's voice softened. "Maybe it's easier than you think. You just don't want to see it." Silence filled the kitchen. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. Emma closed her eyes, her mind flashing back to Daniel's kind smile, his steady voice as he explained how to brace the fence posts. The way he had thanked her for the coffee as if she had done him a favor. She had pushed those memories aside, convincing herself they were meaningless. But now her son was forcing her to face them. Finally, she turned, meeting Ryan's gaze. "And what if I don't want to go?" Ryan gave a small smile. "Then I'll remind you every day until you do." Emma let out a shaky laugh, half annoyed, half touched. He was stubborn, just like her. "You're unbelievable," she muttered. "Maybe," Ryan said, "but I'm right." That night, Emma lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The room was dark, but her mind was alive with thoughts she couldn't quiet. She remembered Ryan's words, his unwavering certainty. She thought about Daniel, about the way his presence had felt. Safe, she couldn't deny it. She had felt something, even if she buried it quickly. But could she really let someone in again? Could she risk her heart after so many years of keeping it locked away? She turned on her side, pulling the blanket closer. Sleep came slowly, interrupted by flashes of the past and whispers of the future. By the time dawn light filtered through the curtains, one truth was clear. Tomorrow at the cookout, she would have to face Daniel, whether she was ready or not. The smell of grilled burgers and hot dogs floated through the air as Emma and Ryan walked toward the community park the next afternoon. The neighborhood cookout was in full swing. Children ran across the grass with frisbees. Music played faintly from a speaker, and the chatter of neighbors blended with the sound of sizzling food. It should have been a simple, ordinary event. But for Emma, every step felt heavy. Her heart thudded in her chest. She wasn't dressed fancy, just jeans and a light blouse. But she kept smoothing her shirt, second-guessing everything. She told herself she was just here for Ryan, but deep down she knew why her hands shook. Somewhere in this crowd was Daniel. Ryan seemed far more relaxed. He grabbed a soda and waved at a group of friends, leaving Emma by the picnic tables. "I'll be back," he called casually. But the look in his eyes told her he had a plan. Emma sat down, folding her hands in her lap, trying to look calm. She chatted briefly with a neighbor about the weather, but her mind wasn't in the conversation. She was too aware of the possibility any moment. Daniel might appear. And then he did. She saw him before he saw her, tall, broad-shouldered, carrying a tray of buns toward the grill. His hair was sprinkled with gray, his face lightly tanned, his movements steady and sure. He looked comfortable, as if he belonged here, as if he belonged everywhere. Emma tried to look away, but at that exact moment, Daniel glanced up. Their eyes met across the tables. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to pause. Then he smiled, the same warm smile she remembered from the day of the fence. Her chest tightened. She quickly busied herself with her drink, but footsteps soon approached. "Emma," Daniel said, his voice calm and inviting. "It's good to see you again." She looked up, forcing a polite smile. "Hi, Daniel." "Yes, it's been a while." He gestured to the empty seat across from her. "May I?" She nodded, and he sat down, setting his drink beside him. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Emma felt the urge to fidget, but Daniel's presence was oddly grounding. Finally, he broke the silence. "I hope you don't mind me saying this, but Ryan mentioned you might be here today. I was hoping to run into you." Emma blinked, startled. "Ryan? Of course." Her son hadn't just hinted. He had arranged this. She made a mental note to have a serious talk with him later. Still, she found herself replying softly. "He seems to be full of surprises lately." Daniel chuckled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "He's a good kid. You've raised him well." The compliment caught her off guard. She looked down, embarrassed but touched. "Thank you. I try." The conversation eased into something lighter, small talk about the neighborhood, the weather, even the chaos of teenagers and their endless energy. To Emma's surprise, she found herself laughing. Real laughter, not the forced kind she sometimes used at work. Daniel had a way of listening, of making her feel like her words mattered. After a while, Ryan reappeared, holding 2 plates piled high with food. He set one in front of Emma, then grinned knowingly at Daniel. "Hey, glad you found her." Emma shot her son a look, but Ryan only shrugged innocently. "What? You two needed lunch." With that, he wandered off again, leaving them together. Daniel smiled at Emma. "He's determined, isn't he?" Emma sighed, half amused, half exasperated. "You have no idea." As the afternoon wore on, Emma felt something she hadn't in years: comfort in someone else's company. Daniel was easy to talk to, his presence both steady and warm. He didn't push, didn't pry, but when he asked her about herself, her job, her hobbies, her dreams, he listened, like her answers mattered. At one point, Emma admitted, almost without thinking, "I don't really do things like this anymore. I usually just keep to myself." Daniel tilted his head thoughtfully. "Sometimes we build walls around ourselves without realizing how tall they've grown. It can feel safer inside them. But every once in a while, someone knocks on the door. You just have to decide if you'll open it." Emma's breath caught. His words hit her harder than she expected. For a moment, she had no reply. But her silence seemed to say everything. The sun dipped lower, casting golden light across the park. Children's laughter echoed in the distance. Neighbors began packing up dishes, and the event slowly wound down. Emma stood to leave, but before she could, Daniel gently touched her arm. "Would you maybe like to take a walk sometime?" Nothing formal. Just a walk. No pressure. Her instinct was to say no, to protect herself, to retreat behind the familiar walls. But when she looked at him, saw the sincerity in his eyes, she found herself hesitating. And in that hesitation, Ryan's earlier words echoed in her mind. "You deserve to be happy." She swallowed, her heart racing. "Maybe I'll think about it." Daniel smiled. Not disappointed, not pushy. Just patient. "That's all I ask." On the way home, Ryan walked beside her, his expression smug. Emma shook her head. "You planned all of this, didn't you?" Ryan grinned. "Maybe, but admit it too liked talking to him." Emma rolled her eyes, but deep down, she couldn't deny it. Something inside her had shifted. For the first time in a long time, she felt the faint spark of possibility. That night, lying in bed, Emma stared at the ceiling again. Only this time her thoughts weren't heavy with regret. They were lighter, filled with questions, with maybes. She could still feel Daniel's presence, hear his words about walls and doors. She didn't know what the future held. But she knew one thing for certain. Life didn't feel quite as predictable anymore. And for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of that.